Okay, so as I have been highlighting in some of these videos, it's my understanding that most people walking around have huge amounts of anger inside of them. Okay? Well, actually, we have huge amounts of grief or sadness, and then we are layered up with fear. Okay? And then we develop addictions, emotional or physical, that meet our worldview and prevent us from feeling our fear. When our addictions are not met, that is when we experience anger. And that's what this video is about. Judgments about anger. Okay? If we all are full of anger, why do we have such trouble releasing it? Well, I feel that part of the problem is we don't feel that we can release it in a healthy way. And the other part of the problem is I feel that we don't even want to admit we've got it inside of us. Okay? So let's talk about some of the judgments we have about anger. Okay? And remember, judgments are other people's view of acceptable behavior. Okay? I did an older video about judgments. You want to check it out, where we talk a little bit more in depth about the concept of judgments and why judgments themselves are not beneficial to us. Okay? So what I'm highlighting here is that even though there's contradictory judgments about anger that we're going to talk about, that none of these judgments are beneficial for us. Okay? The first judgment that we have is that anger is non-loving. Like, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that if you're a person who's not expressing anger, it's oftentimes easy to look at another person who is and put yourself in a higher position than they are, right? Look at that crazy person over there, yelling and screaming. Obviously, they've got a lot of anger inside of them, right? So we like to separate and distance ourselves and make judgments about people that are expressing their anger, okay? We look at that and we say, I don't want anything to do with that. That right there is a mess, okay? And to some degree, they're right. Because most of the time, people don't express their anger in loving ways. And we'll talk about that in a second, okay? Where does this come from, right? Well, we might be taught as children by our parents or by society, okay, that our anger is non-loving and it's far better to push the anger that we've got down rather than admit that it's there, okay? This tends to happen, generally speaking, more in women than in men, okay? Oftentimes, there are many activities that are male-dominated that revolve around the expression of anger, okay? And that where, anger can actually be powerful, which we're going to talk about in a second. But a lot of young ladies, when they are being brought up, are emotionally being taught by their parents that anger is non-loving, okay? So this judgment about anger, oftentimes coming from our parents, right? They don't want to feel or witness our expression of anger, so they make judgments about it emotionally, and then we inherit that. Oh, well, anger is non-loving, so I don't have any in me, okay? Now, how does one express anger in a loving way? Well, there's essentially two kinds of anger, okay? There is directed, projected anger, where it's like you are thinking, feeling, and directing energy at another person, place, or thing, okay? A proper noun, if you will. So like if you're a man and you're directing your negative energy at a woman, you are projecting at that person. That's non-loving. If you're projecting at an institution, right? Like I know I still have anger at the Catholic Church. If I'm projecting anger at the Catholic Church, I'm still projecting anger, you see? Those projections of anger are actually addictions, okay? A more loving way, or really the loving way, to release your anger is to express your anger in a general way, almost like you're a tantruming child, you're just, ah! ah. That kind of anger, you feel it and it releases from you. And then when it releases from you, you start to feel your fear and you can get into your grief here, okay? So, feeling it in a general way, that's good. Directing it at a person, that's non-loving, okay? Understand the difference. Understand the difference. And remember, we've talked about the law of attraction in previous episodes. So, like, if you find yourself, let's say you attract a partner who cheats on you, okay? And you really want to project anger at that person. Actually, that person is highlighting an emotional injury within inside of you that you believe it's okay for your partner to cheat on you. I know that's a tough concept, but I talk about it in Forgiveness and Repentance Principles as well. I encourage you to check that one out as well, okay? But like, if you're going to project anger at a person, then you're actually darkening your own condition, okay? However, anger can be your guide. So, like, as an example, earlier today, a friend of mine who is a spiritual practitioner, who we communicate regularly, she challenged some of the things that I have been teaching and highlighting in these videos, okay? And I did experience some anger generated in me from our interaction, okay? Now, that's a roadmap for me, right? Because I can take that and I can say, this is definitely happening inside of me. However, this person that I'm interacting with is part of the event that's showing me that that is inside of me, okay? Now, this person happened to be a woman, and she happens to be an attractive woman, okay? So, is it that what I'm teaching is an error? Or does she believe something's an error, and that's why she's confronting me about it, and she is attempting to manipulate me in order to get me to believe the same thing as she does to validate her own worldview? Do I have the fortitude to stand up and defend truth to a attractive woman? See, that's how it can be. It can be quite interesting, you know? So the anger could be about her not believing what I'm teaching or feel that what I'm sharing is valid. Or it could be, here's another woman trying to influence my spiritual development. It's most likely the second, right? And who was the original female in my life who manipulated my spiritual development? Yeah, my Earth Mother. Exactly. Okay, how about that anger means you're weak and easily manipulated, okay? This one, it's in contradiction to the next one, which is powerful, and we get what we want. They go hand in hand, okay? If a person is able to direct their anger, their suppressed anger, and direct it strategically, they often learn from the people that raise them and society as well that anger is a very powerful technique to get what you want. Now, of course, this is using fear to manipulate someone, which actually makes you a terrorist. But obviously, this is an effective technique because tons of people do it, okay? The flip side of that is, let's say you're a person who is easily angered. Everything that someone says gets you angry, okay? Well, that means that you are weak, right? These are judgments, and that you are easily manipulated. So these are actually two kinds of anger, right? The first one here, the person who's being manipulated, they are reacting to every one of their emotional addictions that are not being met, okay? Whereas the person down here is seething in anger and using their suppressed anger as a tool of manipulation, manipulating and leveraging the fear of others to get what they want, okay? How about punished for expressing your anger, okay? Let's say you're a kid and you get angry and you are feeling out your anger. But maybe it inconveniences a parent or teacher. Oftentimes we're taught that what we are doing is wrong. You know, I remember something that, like an event that occurred to me when I was in preschool, actually, like before kindergarten. So I'm maybe I'm like 4, maybe 5, whatever. And I'm sitting at this long table. There's a whole bunch of kids at this table, right? And we're doing some arts and crafts thing or whatever. And the 2 children sitting directly across from me, a male and a female, are making fun of me and saying not nice things to me, okay? And I can't get up and leave because that's against the rules, right? So what I did was I put my fingers in my ears and just started screaming. Now, I'm expressing my anger in a general way. I'm actually not directing it at those 2 children. I'm just letting everyone know that I'm displeased with what's happening here. That's all. So, teacher, whatever they call them in preschool, comes over, reprimands me, doesn't ask why I was screaming, doesn't ask if I'm okay, just comes over and yells at me for yelling. Yeah. See, and we wonder why our interpersonal relationships are so terrible. Like, yeah, from the teacher's perspective, it's annoying that this kid's screaming, but like, hey, maybe there's a reason why. You think it's just fun for me to just scream for no reason? Like, of course not. I'm being harassed. And I'm feeling out my emotions. And then you know, like, this is an example in my life, but like, you know, we are taught and oftentimes punished for expressing our emotions. So I express my anger and I get punished. Then that turns into we are never allowed to express our anger. Okay, we suppress it. And then this happens, where our suppressed anger turns into depression. Why? Because we feel powerless when we can't express our anger. So we say, fuck it. Not going to do anything. That's apathy. That's apathy. Apathy or depression, it's suppressed rage. Okay? Now, maybe you're sitting there saying, okay, everything this guy is saying makes sense. Doesn't change the fact that I don't have any anger inside of me. Well, I drew this nice scale for you down here. Because much like in the What is Morality video where I describe how the creator views behavior as the creator views all behavior from loving to evil on a huge scale of non-loving, spectrum of non-loving, okay? And that's basically what we've got down here, okay? We've got mild annoyance all the way down to murderous rage. That is the scale, the range, the spectrum of anger, okay? So like, if you're a person that gets annoyed a lot, guess what? You've got anger inside of you. Far better for you to admit it, okay? In fact, you know, like where I grew up, colloquial expression, common for many people to say, I hate people. My mother used to say this. I hate people. Yes, you are full of rage. You hate people? because they're not meeting your addictions, you're full of rage because they're not meeting your addictions. I talked about being honest with yourself. This is a theme that keeps coming back, right? There's no accidents. My Earth Mother used to say that. I hate people. And then she gets confronted when I highlight to her that she's full of rage. As a spirit. I confront her as a spirit. She no longer has a physical body. But it doesn't matter. It's the same thing, right? They're still there. They still have the ability to manipulate you. That's why going through this is important, okay? Because this clears up our emotional holes. This heals our soul and prevents other entities from messing around with us. If you've got mild annoyance in you for something, and then the law of attraction brings you an event, it is possible for a spirit person to hook into your mild annoyance and pull and wrench on that and leverage that mild annoyance to huge amounts of rage. Again, it's all emotional based, right? You're attracting the spirit because you've got sympathetic emotional injuries, okay? So like if you find yourself getting insanely angry over something very small, you know, like people will talk about this in relationships, right? Like you're in a relationship with someone for a while and then pretty soon you're fighting over the small stuff, okay? Well, part of that is your codependent addictions are breaking down. And the reason why you think you're sexually attracted is no longer holding, okay? But the other part of it is like sweating the small stuff is this, okay? You're mildly annoyed, but because you've got a spirit person hooking into you and manipulating you, it turns into, well, it can go to murderous rage almost sometimes. And then we say things like, oh, I didn't mean to say that to you, or I didn't mean to act in this way. Yeah, I think you did. I think you did. And I'm not saying blame things on spirits. You're the one letting the spirits in. See, this is the point. This gets back to taking responsibility for ourselves, okay? We go through these layers of emotions. We heal our injuries. We prevent spirits from hooking into us. We also, during this process, we grow in love. And we develop a relationship with the Creator. And we feel more joy, bliss, pleasure, right? More good stuff comes with us. It comes along with this process, okay? This process is going to be challenging for you to experiment with if you're not open about admitting you've got anger without judgment. Again, anyone can try this for free. If you have anger inside of you and you have judgments about it, allow yourself to experiment. I can release my anger in a loving way. I don't have to direct my anger at someone. Maybe my anger is tied up in things like sexual attraction, which is how, maybe members of the opposite gender or the same gender are manipulating you. This is a way to empower yourself, okay? Because remember, if we're easily angered, anyone can take advantage of us, right? And what's the other one? If we're using our anger in a directed way to manipulate people, we're leveraging fear against another person to attempt to manipulate their behavior, that makes us a terrorist. The Creator does not agree with that behavior. Okay, so, in conclusion, making judgments about anything is not going to hurt you. Making judgments about anything is not going to help you. We have built-in judgments about anger. Challenge them. Your judgments might be different than the other person's judgments, okay? Maybe you think anger is weak, the other person thinks it's powerful, okay? Maybe you hold both of these beliefs in different situations, okay? Maybe you hold this one, that anger is non-loving, and we don't want to admit to it's there, right? Maybe you want to say, I'm just annoyed. I'm not actually angry. What if you have children? Do you want to admit to yourselves that you're angry at your children? Probably not, right? Which you're actually not angry at your children, you're actually angry at your parents, but I think we've gone about as far as we can on this video about this topic, okay? So, if you've got mild annoyance, you're part of this rage of anger, which is actually not getting your addictions met, which is preventing you from covering your fear, okay? That's another reason why people don't want to admit there's anger. Because if you admit you've got anger inside of you, you're also admitting to all this other stuff. You're saying, yes, I've got emotional addictions, meet my worldview. Yes, I've got huge amounts of fear and terror. And yes, I've got grief from not feeling loved all the time, unconditionally, from my parents, as the Creator would love us. Love and peace, friends.